Fears of vaccine nationalism have lurked since vaccines were in the pipeline. Now, tensions between the United Kingdom and the EU over vaccine supplies show just how real the problem is. The conflict reflects greater concerns about vaccine hoarding. Some argue it is understandable governments need to put their people's interest first, but the World Health Organization has called unequal vaccine policies a catastrophic moral failure. What are the potential consequences if vaccine hoarding is unchecked? And what duty do drug companies or governments have in providing more equitable access to life-saving vaccines? And what can be done? Joining me today from Seoul, South Korea via Skype is Jerome Kim, Director General of the International Vaccine Institute, and from Istanbul, Turkey, Serkan Oral, political analyst and writer. Gentlemen, welcome to The Point. Mr. Kim, let me go to you. Now, the tensions between the UK and EU keep escalating after AstraZeneca, one of the world's major COVID-19 vaccine manufacturers, said it could not fill the number of vaccine doses promised earlier to the EU. And reports have said that the EU will get 60% fewer doses of the vaccine than promised for the first 3 months of this year. And EU leaders have said the company is prioritizing the UK in its deliveries. So what does that say about vaccine hoarding as a general problem?
So I think you've pointed out a very important concern. Luckily, the EU and the United Kingdom have come to some sort of reconciliation, and that was very important. Vaccine nationalism actually has two different directions, and depending on how a person is using it, it can be even more confusing potentially. The first way is exactly as you described. A country may decide to appropriate vaccine made within its borders, even though that vaccine is promised or committed to other people. Many countries, actually, the EU is not the only region that has rules that allow it to do that under pressing circumstances. Mm-hmm. Now, I think that the recognition here was that the European Union had done this without consultation, and also that the United Kingdom's government had actually committed a significant amount of funding to the development of AstraZeneca's vaccine, and had actually also supported vaccine manufacturing within the European Union as a part of its overall plan to have vaccines available for the UK. So they did come to an understanding, and luckily this was resolved diplomatically, which is what you really want it to be. But the second aspect of vaccine nationalism, and people use it in a very imprecise way, is to say that when a country or a company representing a country approaches another country, say a poorer country, and offers them vaccine, then this is a form of vaccine diplomacy, where vaccines are being used for purposes other than simple humanitarian relief, but to gain an advantage, a political advantage. Mm-hmm. And it's almost not diplomacy as much as it is geopolitical maneuvering. And, countries have made donations of vaccine to neighboring countries that don't have manufacturing capability.
All right, so it is a rather complicated problem and has to be broken down in order to really understand it. Mr. Oral, this clash has been called a result of vaccine nationalism, as we've just talked about, which made international headlines. Some referred to it as a Trumpian kind of a response to the issue, demanding my country first, as they argue that countries, including rich countries, taking care of their own people is understandable in human and political terms. What is your reaction? What are your thoughts?
Their political agenda shadows the fight against the epidemic. Especially there is a weak leadership at EU. At the start of the pandemic, we saw that Italy, Portugal and Spain didn't get any help. Even no masks or ventilators. That was the problem during Brexit, and after Brexit now it's maybe a new issue, not only a medicine issue. The vaccine nationalism shows that it is more than a medicine issue. It's a union problem. After pandemic, this will be more clear that the weak leadership of EU will not help easily to the others. Where are the humanity or equality values? The EU values are getting down. So I am really concerned about the future of the European Union, because they say my country first, my terrorist is fine, my priorities are important. This is a sinking ideology, like the Brexit. We can see Italy exit or Portugal exit or Spain exit in the near future. So EU cannot save their currency or their policies and governments near future if they don't change the policies like that, because EU had common values before, but now we can see after the pandemic issue and fighting with epidemic issues, so no one is safe until everyone is safe. So we need to underline this. Also the nationalism, the vaccine nationalism is also shows that another thing. The EU are anti-refugee, anti-Muslim and anti-Turk policies that are hateful for the all humanity. So France lead EU cannot save their streets if the policies don't change, but also the political way the far right is rising there. Also the EU members will look for other solutions. So the vaccine solution is in the Asia now.
Okay, Mr. Oral, I understand you have very strong opinion there about the European Union. Unfortunately, we don't have another guest here who's able to counter your argument. I'm sure they also have their their reasons, you know, why they have done. They also have a lot of countries which are in desperate need to protect their population. Mr. Kim, let me pose this question to you then. How can you balance the kind of needs for national governments or for, you know, a regional bloc like the European Union to say we need to protect our people, maybe not first above everybody else, but urgently, and given that also there is widespread cases, and then that has to be balanced with the need for the world, right, to be given humanitarian assistance?
Yes, absolutely, and I think you're correct. I mean, national governments are often empowered by their people in a democracy to protect their interests. And so it is the business of government to look after the interest of their citizens. And if you look at where in the world there were significant numbers of infections, where hospitals were full, where people were dying, it was the European Union. So the deployment of vaccines in an area particularly hard hit does make sense from an economic and humanitarian perspective. I think that the bigger question, and the one I think that you're hinting at, is that the world needs to also work together. And in that, 189 countries, including, you know, the countries in the European Union, many countries in North America, America has now committed to something called COVAX. And COVAX aims to provide 20% of all countries' needs by the end of 2021. And WHO has reported that, you know, thanks to some agreements in principle, they've reached the 2 billion dose requirement for 2021. And I think that's a remarkable thing. So the wealthier countries are contributing funding to help support poorer countries, which is what we expect. And Gavi expects that 92 countries will receive low-cost or no-cost vaccines through an advanced purchasing commitment that has been arranged. So again, this is what we need to see. But we need to look beyond 20%, because what we really need to do is provide 80%, 90% of the world's populations access to safe, effective, and affordable vaccines for COVID-19.
Yeah. Mr. Oral, the World Health Organization Director General Dr. Tedros called a catastrophic moral failure when many of the rich countries, for instance, he was talking about this in January, that almost 40 million doses were given to 49 rich states, whereas only one poor nation, least developed country, got only 25 doses. Obviously, that was not acceptable, but things have improved from that moment on. For a country such as Turkey, I understand your country have already given out 2 million, but that's only 2 million out of 82 million. And I understand you don't have your own vaccine producer. So what is the predicament for countries such as yours? You're not the richest, you're not the vaccine producing ones, yet you're not the least developed ones either.
Personally honor the COVAX for the fair vaccine policies. The wealthier countries should help the poorest ones in an equal way. According to Turkey, Turkey act quickly and faster to find the solution and then direct the deal with the Chinese Sinovac vaccines. It was important that Turkey show an independence diplomacy. When I listen your show, dear Liu Xin, thanks Allah that we are not the part of EU now, because the crisis is deeply in EU, but Turkey has done better thing. Daily 2 million people get vaccinated in Turkey. That is the point that Turkey decided own way, and Turkey had an opportunity to choose and buy own vaccines. Then the right one and the trustable one was the Chinese vaccine. So Turkey choose this way because it's especially the inactive vaccine, Chinese one, and it's created bodies are familiar, others are not a new generation.
I see.
The point is that let's see the big picture. The West is uncovered fighting with China. There are some rivalries between China and the West, and Turkey choose Chinese vaccines for this process.
I got your point, Mr. Oral. Thank you very much. I would say on behalf of the Chinese and Chinese people especially, thank you very much for that trust in our vaccine. On the other hand, the world does need a lot more vaccine than that's being churned out at this moment, and all kinds of vaccine from different countries. Mr. Kim, I give you one last minute if you can help me with this question. What is happening with any political implication with which vaccine to choose, which vaccine not to choose? It seems that there is this kind of division. I hope not, because we are in short overall.
You know, we really do need a good supply, 16 billion doses of safe, effective, and affordable vaccines. And can Chinese companies potentially contribute? Yes. Can Russian companies potentially contribute? Yes. Should Western, European, and North American companies contribute? Yes. The way that it enters the COVAX mechanism requires two things. First, the company has to make a deal with COVAX, and COVAX is actually right now negotiating with a number of different companies, including some which haven't been named yet. So that's very important. Right now, the only vaccine that is approved by the WHO and has a deal with COVAX is Pfizer. So until the WHO approval system begins to encompass the AstraZeneca vaccine, the vaccine potentially from Sinopharm or from Sinovac, or the Gamaleya vaccine from Russia, until those are accepted into by the WHO, they can't enter the COVAX mechanism. So again, it's going to be really important for WHO and other regulatory agencies to look at the data quickly, completely, and to render a judgment whether these vaccines are ready. And then we could have billions of doses of vaccines available by the end of 2021 and going into 2022.
Okay, I have to wrap it there. Yeah, I think Chinese vaccines are going through that process, and hopefully the approval will be given very soon as possible. Many thanks to Jerome Kim and Serkan Oral joining us from different parts of the world. With that, we come to the end of this edition of The Point with Mili Shin. Thanks for watching. You've got the point.